Welcome, beloved community. This is the video of week 1 that looks at the theme of week 1, which is about conditions and conditions of practice. And so we want to focus on what are the conditions we want to create that will actually nourish and nurture our practice, that will allow us to practice in the best possible way, and also be able to develop our practice. Because remember, that notion of cultivation is that we're going over something again and again and again. And that is how we are going to help and support this process of transformation. You know, when the caterpillar becomes the butterfly, it actually, part of the transformation involves it actually consuming itself. So we want to learn from all of our life experience that has come and gone before. We want to know the things that serve us well, the things that actually support us and nourish us. And we want to know the things that don't work well. And so the things that support us are things that we want to take up and do more of. And this will relate to people who love us, people who support us. It will relate to foods that are good for us, foods that really make us feel strong and clear. It will relate to the ways for how long we know we need to sleep at night, and putting in place the conditions that help us achieve that level of sleep. So just on that point alone, we know that eating very late at night, for instance, can mean for some of us that we are busy digesting food in the middle of the night, and that doesn't necessarily help with sleep. So it might mean that we eat earlier in the evening, if it is possible, and that we allow a period before we go to sleep so that the body is lighter as it goes to sleep. And so we want to think of any other factors that we know nourish us. And it might mean that maybe before I go to sleep, I take a moment to pause and to consider, to reflect back on what the day has been like. A moment where we can drop in on ourselves and really sense how we feel about how we have lived for the day, and that we learn to accept and forgive our trespasses, and we find ways of putting in place the conditions that help us not repeat those, that we celebrate all of the kindnesses that we can see from the day that has just passed, and that we remember and almost savor them. We savor the kindnesses either that we have enacted or the kindnesses that we've seen other people enacted. Remember, when we perform a kindness and we imprint it in our bodies, that physiological and energetic and spiritual change amplifies. When we don't imprint it, it's maybe like worth 5% of transformation, right? When we imprint it, that percentage vastly increases, because then there's a conscious memory and a conscious recognition of what kindness feels like, and I'm able to invoke it. So it might be that in future, I'm able to invoke the feeling of kindness, switch it on, and that's what actually helps me make even more acts of kindness. And this is the notion that our behaviors create more of those behaviors. It's sometimes said in the words, kindness begets kindness. It means when we are kind, more kind things happen. When I'm When you're kind to me, I am very inclined to treat you in the same way, and vice versa, right? There's a different energy and dynamic between us. And all of you practice this already. What we're wanting to do now is turn on that awareness of kindness. It's the same as like deliberate joy, right? We want to turn on the awareness of deliberate joy. Okay, so all of these things are conditions we can speak about that can support the practice. And at the same time, we want to be aware of what are the conditions that actually prevent me from practicing or make it difficult to practice or spoil my practice or make it even impossible for me to practice. And so we want to list the things that are good and that I want to take up, and list the things that are not favorable to practice and that I actually want to let go of and give up. Of course, we all know that sometimes these habits might include that I like to have something really sweet late at night, and that I know a kind of, maybe it causes me a little bit of heartburn, or it wakes me up 4 hours later, or whatever the case might be. And so I want to be aware of those things. If there is a pattern that I need to break, for example, perhaps I am on my phone very late at night and it's very stimulating, and I might want to put an end to that habit. So I want to identify, how can I go about letting go of these habits that actually I need to let go of, that militate against, that detract from my possibilities of practice. And I want to become very aware. It might be that I ask my friends, I say, this is really something I want to commit to. I want to be able to put in place the conditions that help me practice, that help me really cultivate this, build the habit of practicing, right? We want to make it a habit that we are very loyal to our practice. We are loyal to never dismissing the practice. It's almost like I want to love my practice. I want my practice to become my beloved, right? It's that relationship. And of course, my beloved, I would not want to upset or offend or be unkind to. And so I want to see my practice as this amazing beloved that I want to be loyal to, and that it's like I want to bring it flowers, and I want to bring it a glass of water, and I want to bring it an offering, because it is so precious and it is so dear to me, right? It's that kind of relationship. And so it might be that I understand that I'm going to protect the senses during the day, and especially in the evening. I'm going to protect the senses from being overstimulated. It may be that I want to consciously put in place conditions that help me sleep a little bit better at night. And many of you have spoken about the fact that it's very difficult and challenging to have a dedicated space where you are able to practice every morning. And we appreciate that there will always be challenges. And so within the conditions of challenge, even there, I want to address this issue. How do I make my environment most conducive to practicing? It might mean that I wear something in my ears at night so that I may sleep better. It might mean that I wear something in my ears while I practice if there is too much noise around me and I don't need to be aware of everything that is going on around me. It might be that I want to deliberately find a space, a small corridor where I can lay down my mat and have some time on my own where I can say to my family members, this is what I want to commit myself to. This is what I want to dedicate myself to. Will you please support me? It might be that I want to say to my friends, I'm actually, for the next so many months, maybe I'll see you on a Saturday or Sunday evening, early in the evening, but I really want to take this time to cultivate my practice so that that can become strong. And once I am feeling more confident about my practice, I can teach you too. I can teach you too. So all of these things where we know there are things that actually draw us away from our practice or that detract from our practice, I want to become very, very much more conscious of how can I support myself or ask for help with putting in place the conditions that will allow me to practice far better. That gives me a far better chance than I've ever given myself before. And again, it might be that I want to hold myself accountable, that I want to pop into the WhatsApp group. I practiced this morning. Thank you so much, community, that I can let you know about this. Thank you for your joy for me. And that could be a way, or it may just be a smaller group, but where we can be accountable and we can lift one another up. So, what am I going to take up in order to support my practice? What am I going to give up in order to make sure that I give myself the best opportunity in this phase two to continue cultivating this path of transformation and complete change that is possible over this period of time? Please do make your lists, people. It makes a big difference to get these out of our heads and onto the page, because then sometimes as we write, more information will come out of us. And when we see something practical, it might be that when it's on paper, I can come up with more solutions or strategies that help me overcome any obstacles that may be in my way. So this is about how do I transcend the obstacles. And then just to go back to that butterfly, you know, part of what the caterpillar does in its transformation is it actually has resistance. It's not all plain sailing. It's not like the caterpillar says, okay, time's right, let's go for it. I'm going to become a butterfly. There's almost a built-in mechanism that tries to cling to being a caterpillar, because the caterpillar knows that it has to offer itself up in order to transform into the butterfly. So there's a huge amount of tenderness. It's almost as if the caterpillar is sacrificing itself as the caterpillar in order to birth the butterfly. And so in the very same way, we want to understand that yes, there will be resistance. And yes, there is sacrifice involved in these early stages of transformation. And that sometimes it may be the sacrifices of things that make us feel good. And so we want to always muster up the imagination of how can I feel even better if I take this, if I walk this path with my peers and with my comrades. How can I feel even better? And so we do all kinds of things. By the way, another form of resistance is laziness, right? That I say, start next week. So remember, they're going to be 21 weeks of this. And the 21 weeks take us to early December. And by then, of course, the practice is in full flow. The practice is, yes, please. And, I may find myself practicing more than the bare minimum. And by then, the idea is that we are able to carry ourselves and that we can always come back again and again and again. So please remember, resistance is part of life. But when we drop beneath the resistance, if I pause and I'm still and I ask myself, what else is here? What is the yearning in my heart? What lies beneath the resistance? I very often may discover that the imaginings of the caterpillar are also the imaginings that hold this vision and this image of the butterfly. So there isn't only resistance. There are other glorious parts of this imagining that we can lean into. There are all of our peers and all the people, some of them past, some of them already transformed from the physical form. There are all kinds of plants and animals and energies around us. There are all of the elements that want what is good for us. And we can lean in to all of this. Sometimes there is music that gives us that feeling of inspiration and being supported and helping the imagination flourish. How am I going to thrive and come to thrive through this process? Please take such care of your precious selves as we take these initial steps. And please remember to record and to make the lists, because all of that helps enormously for us to see on paper, to become much clearer about the possibilities. Remember, for some of us, we may not make lists, we may make bubbles. For some of us, we may draw because it helps us be more expressive and creative. All love to you as you take these steps on our journey together. Be well and live in love and in peace and in all of your imaginings. Thank you.